Victor's Steakhouse, Coach's new place, Keane'S not weird, Freaks, one of us, the check, a seemingly fatal error. Victor's Steakhouse in Anderson, Indiana wouldn't make anyone's list of great dining establishments. It was the kind of place with video games in front and one of those cranes where you attempt to grab a stuffed animal out of a glass box for 25 cents. It was the kind of place you expect the toilet not to work. It stank of hot grease. Coach thought it would be fun to eat there only because it was called Victor's. He'd called ahead in an unusual display of forethought and organization for him and reserved a table. A cloudy, miserable day, it was already growing dark outside as we quietly lined into the restaurant. "Coach," said Bowden, "maybe this isn't a good idea. We're all pretty fried, I think." Several of us stood behind Bowden in support of his motion that we simply go home and try and forget the day. Coach wouldn't have it. "We get one meal in the athletic department per year, goddammit," he said, "and this is it. We ain't saving it for after sectionals. I'm going to be so depressed after we don't make it again, I'm just going to want to go home and drink." "You're back at home?" asked Victor. "Nah," said Coach, waving that thought off as nonsense. "My marriage is over. Home for me is now the Grand Hotel." This gave me a jolt. The Grand, just off the town square, was a huge old fleabag joint for alcoholics, drifters, and, rumor was, the occasional small-town hooker. He had mentioned it that morning in the wrestling room, but I thought he was joking. The place was downright squalid. "What?" said Coach in response to the looks on several of our faces. "It ain't that bad. I got cable." He scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Don't got a television, but I got cable when I get one." Our waiter, dressed in cowboy gear, complete with a fake holster and six-shooter, lethargically led all 16 of us to a back room. 4 tables had been pushed together. Our waiter appeared to be sick. His skin was a weird vampire shade. "How's your nose?" said Coach from the middle of the table where he sat. "Broken," Slade said. Popeye laughed twice. Victor, who sat next to him, stared at him like he was going to kill him. "I can't help it," said Popeye. "I laugh when I'm scared." "That's weird," said Swart. "I know," said Popeye apologetically. "I'm a weird kid." "You're all weird," said Coach. "How could you not be weird with me as your coach?" "Keane's not weird," said Hyder. We all looked at Keane and considered him. Keane just took it in, blinked his movie star blue eyes once, and looked back at us. "You're right, champ," said Coach after a moment. "Keane ain't weird. How you suppose that happened?" Slade set his bloody rag down on the table and took a drink of water. "He doesn't say enough to seem weird, but he's weird too," he said. "It's like in that movie, Freaks." I was happy to hear him talk about something other than his nose. I half expected him to never speak again and then one day just start killing people after what his dad had done to him. "I ain't seen that one," said Coach. "We'll come and watch it with you," said Victor. "We'll come over to the Grand, score a trick, then watch Freaks. I own the video. It'll be a big night." "Tell me about the movie," said Coach. "Sounds like something we all ought to watch together." Slade and Victor regaled the table about the movie Freaks. "It's the scariest movie ever made," said Slade, who seemed to be forgetting about his broken nose. "It's absolutely got the greatest scene ever in it," said Victor. "Well, start at the start," said Coach. "None of us knows what the hell you're talking about." Above the clinking of glasses and through the process of giving our orders to our pasty cowboy waiter, Slade and Victor described Freaks. "There's this circus, see? Like back in the 20s or 30s, said Victor. "That's when it was made," added Slade. "It's black and white, and it's not really a circus. It's a freak show. They've got a bearded lady, these creepy as hell pinheads, midgets galore, a guy with no legs who scrambles around on his hands." "And there's this woman, right?" said Victor. "She thinks the midget who owns the freak show is rich. She acts like she loves him, but instead she loves the strong man. She just wants the midget's money." "They use real midgets?" asked Coach. Slade leaned forward. "They use real everything. That's what makes it so damn scary. No way could anybody make that movie now. It would totally offend freaks, retards, and cripples everywhere." "So," said Victor, "this one night the freaks all get together with this lady who marries the midget for money, and they all get trashed. They're all drinking wine and partying, and then the freaks do this freak wedding thing. They start saying this lady is one of us. Then they start chanting it, saying, one of us, one of us. Popeye started chanting it along with Victor. One of us, one of us. Leonardo laughed and joined in. Pretty soon we were all laughing and chanting, one of us, one of us. Victor raised his hands in silence. Jesus, he said, shut the hell up. Anyway, the lady goes bonkers. She's like, I'm not one of you freaks. Slade took over. So now everybody sees what she and the strong man are up to. His voice was nasally and high, his nose clogged with blood. And then comes the greatest scene in the history of movies. Victor stole the spotlight once again. It's this rainy, nasty night. The wagons are going down this muddy road because the freaks are moving on to another town. You think it's just showing them moving, but then you see a freak, like sharpening a knife in its nasty little room. Then you see the other freaks, and they're getting ready to go get this lady, said Slade. They got pipe wrenches and ropes. They're fixing to teach that lady a lesson. We were all leaning in towards the center of the table, totally sucked in. The best, said Victor, is when this little thing with no legs puts a knife in its mouth. It drags itself through the mud, grabbing onto the bottom of the wagons as they move. He shook his head at the thought. It's so twisted, dude. And then, said Slade, they all get to the lady's wagon at the same time, and they start chanting, one of us, one of us. The cowboy waiter began sliding plates of pink and gray meat in front of us, potatoes wrapped in aluminum foil on the side, along with some brownish green beans. Although we'd ordered different things, our plates all looked the same. Nobody paid any attention. The movie ends, said Victor, with a circus announcer talking to a crowd of people. It's like they didn't show you what happened to the lady. They just ended with all these freaks bearing down on her with their knives and wrenches and shit. And the announcer says to the people that they're about to see the craziest freak of all. Victor dramatically stared at us in our seats. None of us made a move toward our food. We were all listening. And he pulls a cover off this cage to reveal the woman. But she's totally messed up. Like she doesn't have any arms or legs. And one of those freaks cut her tongue out, so all she can do is make this crazy clucking noise. Slade smiled and got the last word in. She's one of them, he said, a smile on his ruined face. I'd like to see that, said Coach. He shrugged. I ain't got no VCR, though. We can bring one over, said Victor. That'd be swell, said Coach. Can you bring a TV, too? Swell, said Popeye. He began to laugh. The meat was raw or burnt, even both in some cases. The green beans were cool and mushy, and the potatoes were room temperature and butter wouldn't melt on them. We didn't care. There was laughter at the table. Slade told the story of the kid in the green jersey, how he'd popped him without even thinking about it, how shocked he'd been to see that blood. He didn't mention his dad. Victor taunted us, holding the number 1 on his sweatshirt up for all of us to see repeatedly, chanting, I'm number 1. Bowden told the story of being hit in the cheek with the frozen egg on Thursday night, blaming Popeye, who laughed in response. Squid told about the farmer who saved him from the telephone pole where he'd been duct taped back on the first day of school. I was almost brave enough to tell the story behind my black eye, but not quite. It seemed we'd turned a corner somehow. Just by sitting down together at that table, we'd come to terms, even with ourselves. Then the pasty cowboy brought the check and set it before Coach. I didn't even see it happen. We were all talking and carrying on. The next thing I knew, Coach's face was stricken with anxiety. And then suddenly he was whispering loudly at all of us, saying, Let's go! Let's go! Up we stood, confused and disorganized. A chair clattered as it fell over. We gotta go, Coach said in a hoarse whisper. We gotta go now. As we hustled out the door, I looked back at our table. The waiter was searching for something, moving plates, picking up napkins. Hey, he said as Coach pushed us out the door toward the bus. Hey! Run, said Coach. Get on the bus. Hurry! We ran. The bus driver, an old, slow-witted man, was totally confused, but he did as Coach said, limping along as fast as he could on a bad hip. We piled on. The bus engine fired up. Go, 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 shouted Coach at the confused driver. The waiter was pounding on the bus door as the bus lurched out of the parking lot like some drunken dinosaur. He stopped running alongside us as we bounced roughly out onto the street. "What was that about?" shouted Slade from the back seat. "I ain't got no check," said Coach as he stared back at us. "I don't know where it went, but I ain't got it."